You're living a lie! You're living a lie! Yeah, take it down! You're living a lie! This art is terrible!
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We need to talk about Sony's live service strategy once again. This is not something that I was anticipating talking about again so soon, but we have a new report regarding an upcoming title that I'm sure many people are just thrilled about, that being Fair Games. This is coming from Haven Studio, a studio that Sony acquired back in 2022 and was founded by Jade Raymond. And the game was first revealed at the PlayStation Showcase in 2023. In fact, Sony was so confident in it that they decided to open the showcase with this trailer that you're watching in the background. And, you know, to say that people were underwhelmed would be putting it very lightly. But the news today is that apparently Jade Raymond actually left Haven Studio. It seems pretty clear to me that she was asked to leave, at least that's my interpretation of this. It's being reported by Jason Schreier over on Bloomberg. Jade Raymond, the founder and head of Sony's developer Haven Studio, has left the company. PlayStation leadership did not give Haven staff a reason for her departure, but it came several weeks after an external test of Haven's first game, the online shooter Fair Games. According to people with knowledge of the matter, some developers at Haven were concerned about how the game was received and its progress. And these are people that asked, obviously, not to be identified. And so this, to me, it's so obvious, like, what's going on here. This game has been in development for years. This is a studio that was purchased under Jim Ryan's time as PlayStation CEO. And they clearly thought this was going to be another big title. We're talking about the same leadership that believed Concord was going to be the next big thing in live service gaming. And so the most important thing here that's being revealed by Jason Schreier is the fact that the $ was apparently removed from the Fair Games title. I'm kidding, of course, that's not the most important thing. However, that is true. He did confirm, I think on Reset Era, that they removed the $ at the end of Fair Games. Which, yeah, okay. Anyway, the most important thing here has to be the fact that this happened shortly after some play testing was conducted. Now, Sony's new CEO, Hiroki Totoki, when talking about the failure of Concord to investors, he said that, listen, we need more, as he put it, gates. In other words, more filters. They need to put the game in front of more players, do more play testing, get more feedback so that they can avoid disaster like what we saw with Concord, where, you know, in Sony's mind, they thought this is great. What a great game. Everybody's going to love it. It's going to be the next Star Wars. And then they put it out there publicly and everybody hates it. And they're like, whoa, we didn't expect that. So they're clearly trying to do the same thing here with Fair Games. And, you know, to, I would say, nobody's surprise, it seems like whoever was playing this game, or, you know, whatever groups of people they brought in to, like, get feedback from, the feedback must not have been good. The feedback was seemingly so bad that they're like, Jade, you gotta go. Or something, right? A lot of people are reading into this that this game is going to get canceled and the studio is going to get shuttered, just like what happened with Firewalk after Concord. And honestly, maybe that is for the best, right? Like, I don't want to see people lose their jobs, of course, but everything about Sony's live service strategy is cursed. Just flat out, it's cursed. Even if you look at the success of Helldivers 2, right now what we're seeing is Arrowhead Studios saying, listen, we're going to be working on a new game, and we're going to be self-funding, and I would assume self-publishing our next game. We're going to call 100% of the shots. They did say they're open to working with PlayStation again, which is very good. And Arrowhead has had nothing but good and positive things to say about working with Sony as a partner, but that's just it. Sony decided to make the biggest investments in seemingly some of the biggest failures, or what are going to be some of the biggest failures, with studios like Firewalk and Concord, what we're seeing here with Haven and Fair Games, and frankly, what seems like, you know, is going to be end up being Marathon with Bungie, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But when it comes to Arrowhead, it's not to say that they didn't make a big investment in it. They doubled the budget of the game. They gave the team more time. They clearly believed in it. But this is a studio that's going to end up getting away from Sony, right? Their most successful live service studio. They don't own them. They own the Helldivers intellectual property, but they don't actually own the studio. They don't own the talent. And so hopefully Sony can maintain that relationship, because, you know, you want to see that continue, because Arrowhead is a very talented team. But outside of that, everything that Sony has attempted in live service has been, frankly, a complete joke. And to see this report about Fair Games, I'm not even remotely surprised. It's frustrating, because it's like, Sony, you need to wake up. You need to wake up. You need to get the message. And the message is clear. Whatever you're trying to do in live service, either A, stop, or B, do the opposite. Right? I feel like that's the simplest thing, because it's not realistic, honestly, if you're talking seriously about the PlayStation business, the PlayStation brand, and what Sony should or shouldn't do, when it comes to game development going into the future. It's not realistic to say you shouldn't do anything in live service. It's just not, right? What I think Sony should do, though, is maybe reel it in a bit, maybe simplify it, right? We saw them cancel like 9 games, 9 live service games. We'd already talked about Bluepoint making a live service God of War game, and how just insane that is to even fathom that got off the ground and was greenlit. And then eventually somebody decided, you know what though? Maybe this isn't a good idea. Gee, I wonder why. And you could tell I'm frustrated, right? But we've seen them cancel 9 live service games, and the one success they have, it was just something that kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody really expected. Why not just take that money, right? The billions of dollars that you invested in a company like Bungie, and all these different teams that were pitching these games that I have no idea why in Sony's mind they sounded so great and so lucrative. It's a conversation for another day. Why not take that money and just go back to the basics, right? Have half of your teams, some of the most talented development teams in the world, as they're making their single player games, say, hey, we'll give you more money, we'll give you more time, we'll give you more resource, add a multiplayer component. I know that sounds crazy, and that's like, whoa, you can't do that in 2025. Why not? Because you know what the reality is for Sony? Is that if they made the decision to do that, rather than what they're doing here, investing billions into live service teams and entire studios and companies like Bungie, instead of doing that, what we would be looking at right now are single-player titles that we obviously want to get from their studios that would ship with a multiplayer component that maybe you support for a year, maybe even 2 years. Add some microtransactions, and you squeeze more money out of those games, and you make your player base happy, because a lot of PlayStation players actually like to have these multiplayer components in their games as like an optional, like if you just want to keep engaging with the game and keep playing, you can do that. If you want to move on, you can move on. The reality is Sony would have made money from that. They wouldn't have lost money, because what we're looking at now is Sony, frankly, losing billions on a completely failed live service investment. I think about studios like Naughty Dog, and specifically The Last of Us 1, how it had a factions multiplayer mode, which did not take away from the amazing single player at all. But anybody who wanted to continue to play The Last of Us played this multiplayer mode, and they even supported it with content and microtransactions for, I think, a few years after. So they definitely made some more money off of the game once people were done buying it for the single player. We saw this with Uncharted 4. We even saw something like this with Sucker Punch with Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Granted, I don't think that actually had microtransactions, but they definitely could have done a little bit more with it, right? We have seen this so many times in the past with so many PlayStation studios, and what's wrong with that? I just don't get it. Is it because they are afraid that, well, if we try to just put an add-on multiplayer and support it for a year or two, it's not going to be the next Fortnite? It's like, wake up, Sony. You're not ever going to get the next Fortnite. Hate to break it to you. Because the big problem here, in my opinion, is that Sony is chasing a trend. No, not live service. Live service itself is not a trend. It's something that's clearly here to stay. But the successful live service games, those types of games, the ones that are actually finding the biggest success, Sony seemingly is like, if we just kind of like take certain aspects of those games and just, have teams kind of mold their own games that seemingly lack originality. Again, I'm not counting Helldivers 2 here. I think Helldivers 2 actually is a pretty original game and something very unique and different, and that's exactly why it succeeded. But outside of that, everything we've seen thus far is just like, okay, like we've seen these games before, right? And that's why I feel like the idea of just taking your single player teams and just having them do some kind of add-on multiplayer that can be, you know, it might not be on the level of like a 10-year live service roadmap plan, right? Where you're going to get new content every 2 weeks, updates every week. It might not be on that level, but it's something, right? It's something that will not only satiate the fans who actually want that, but it will allow it will allow PlayStation players to be more engaged with these games, with these properties. You don't have to have Blue Point Games making a dedicated God of War live service where the plan is, all right, guys, here's our content roadmap for the next 5 years. You don't need that. Like, truthfully, if you want to have some kind of like tacked on multiplayer experience, you can do what you did with God of War Ascension. I'm not saying that's what people are like clamoring for, but what I am saying is that people will probably be more receptive to something like that. And if it's not something they're interested in, they'll just move on. But there will absolutely be a group of people, may not be tens of millions of people like Sony wants, but there will be a group of people that will continue to engage with that God of War product and likely spend some money on it. I just feel like this isn't rocket science, right? They're shooting for the moon, and it's like they're not even getting off the ground. I feel like this is the problem. Sony is trying to go all in. It's go big or go home, and they're going home. They got to go home now because it's like you went big. You went as big as you possibly could within your means, buying Bungie for billions of dollars, and you know, making Naughty Dog turn the Last of Us Online, or what was supposed to be Factions 2, into The Last of Us Online, just to end up letting them cancel it. Like, it's just total mismanagement, man. And I'm not going on this rant to kind of throw fuel on the fire that is the people out there who are like, Sony's doomed, it's over, PlayStation, it's ending, it's end times for PlayStation. No, this isn't that. PlayStation's going to be fine. We're still getting single player games, but it's just somebody at Sony needs to get it together and understand that the approach they are taking with live service is simply not working. I understand they're going to look at the success of Helldivers and say, but it is working. But it's like, is it really though? You're really going to sit here and try to convince yourself you didn't just get really lucky and get lightning in a bottle with that? It's safe to say that's exactly what happened, because when you look around everything else that surrounds Helldivers 2, it looks like a train wreck. That's what it looks like. That's what it is. Fair Games is going to be a train wreck. If Sony actually goes through with releasing this game, they're going to get what they deserve, just like they did with Concord. And I feel bad because you have all these developers that are like caught in the crossfire where it's like, it's hard to even blame the development teams, but it's like the management, the mismanagement is so severe, right? There's cash injections everywhere in the wrong places. I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. But I want to end on one other note here, just to highlight how bad things are with Bungie and Marathon. And this is coming from somebody who's not even on like I'm not trying to hate on Marathon. I don't even actually have a problem with it. But apparently, Bungie got caught plagiarizing. So if things weren't looking bad enough for Marathon, I have a report here from Push Square, and it says it's not been a good 24 hours for Sony, with live service game Fair Games seemingly falling apart at the seams, and Stellar Blade PC being blocked for sale in a whopping 129 countries. I actually didn't even know about that. But now subsidiary Bungie has been forced to respond to accusations of plagiarism. And so they say here on their Twitter, we immediately investigated concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in-game. To prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, specifically those done by the former Bungie artist, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist contributions. So as if things weren't bad enough already for Sony's entire live service strategy, and especially Marathon, I mean, God, like what is going on here, man? And look, I know I'm really going on here, but I gotta add one last thing to this rant and this tangent. And to me, this has to be the most concerning. I know there are going to be people who get a little bit defensive about this, and I want you to understand that I'm not trying to convince you that what we're about to cover is immediately doomed. It's an immediate dumpster fire, but at the very least, it should make you a little bit concerned about the leadership at Sony and how, man, it looks like they really didn't get the message after Concord, right? They're just not receiving the message somehow, some way. This is a blog post from PlayStation. It came out May 7th, and they're announcing a new PlayStation studio. Now, normally, this would be cause for celebration. Whoa, a new first-party studio. That doesn't happen that often. But actually, it's, in my opinion, very concerning. So this was actually written up by Herman Hulst, the head of Sony's Studio Business Group. He says, "Today I am thrilled to officially unveil a new studio in the PlayStation Studios family. Team LFG originated at Bungie, but has also rallied developers from across the industry to bring to life an ambitious incubation project that I'm very excited about. The studio is now fully formed and ready to be introduced to the world." Doesn't this remind you of something, guys? I feel like we've been here a few times. Oh, wait, that's right, we were. The past 5 years, we've had multiple blog posts come out with Herman Hulst writing them up, talking about how excited he is about these upcoming live service games with these extremely talented teams and their ambitious goals, right? And I want to read this one part here from the LFG studio. They wrote up a whole thing. They say, "The LFG in Team LFG stands for Looking for Group. We are driven by a mission to create games where players can find friendship, community, and belonging. We want our players to feel excited when they log on to discover their teammates already hanging out online. We want our players to recognize familiar names and to make myths and memes out of each other. We want our players to love remembering that one time where they pulled off that play that changed the whole story of the match. As we say on the team, that's the good stuff." You gotta be kidding me, bro. What am I even reading right now? I know I'm really going off, but it's because I need to remind everybody, this blog post is post-Concord. I am reading this in a post-Concord world. It's safe to say Sony didn't get the message. Now, look, maybe there is a silver lining here. I don't even know if I could call it a silver lining, but maybe, just maybe, they just feel like they have to go through with this. They spent $3.6 billion on Bungie. Clearly, Bungie was in a really bad state, and Sony had no idea what was actually going on financially with them somehow. They didn't do their due diligence, and they got burned on it. Maybe they just look at this as like, we got to just throw it out there, see if it can make some type of money. But something tells me that's not what it is, because if it was, if Sony really did learn the lesson that they were supposed to learn from Concord, they would understand that this is quite literally the opposite of what people want to be hearing from PlayStation right now. And yet they're just out here like, we got it, guys. Guys, I think we figured it out this time. And I'm not trying to like crush this game before we even see it. I know people are going to say that, like, give them a chance. We didn't even get to see the game. Guys, I'm a little bit tired of giving these new live service teams, like they talk about how they have developers from Roblox. Isn't that exciting? No, it's not exciting in the least. Not at all. I'm tired of giving these teams chances. I've given multiple studios, multiple teams. I've given Sony an insane amount of chances in this area, and they have failed like in spectacular fashion almost every time. So I just had to like talk about this again, man. And I had to really just put it all out here where Sony, get it together, man. What are you doing? Like, just stop this nonsense. Trying to chase the, this live service dragon you're never going to catch, and get back to the basics. You get back to the basics, you build from there, you'll make something successful in the long term. That's exactly what you did with PlayStation, starting with the PS1. All the single player development teams you have right now, all the single player games, you started with the basics. You weren't chasing, unfathomable success right out of the gate. They need to scope down a little bit here, or maybe even a lot. And they need to get back in touch and actually start with what the fans want first. You start with the hardcore fans, the ones who are here, the ones who will actually play your games, and then you build out from there. It's not rocket science. Anyway, that's going to do it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Trying to, make our way to 102,000 subscribers. We made it to 101,000, which is absolutely nuts. So thank you guys so much for that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Hit the bell notification, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.